Feel it, look, perfect. Okay, you can adjust if you want. Very nice. Okay. Hold, hold. Very nice. Hold. So there's some practice swings where it's a softer takeaway.
I like the putter feel better.
Good. But a much softer, yeah. But you still have that acceleration, but it's from a shorter distance. Yeah, like that. Oh, that is so good. Look at that one.
That was it, yeah.
That's going to be about the same place, even though you didn't hit it as clean. Yeah, but all three of those about, you could put a hula hoop over them. That one's really good. And what you've changed is controlling the length of your backswing by controlling the. Okay, Aaron, I'm going to look at your putting first. On the left is video I took before we began talking about some of the fundamentals, and on the right was in round 2 after we had I met with the group and talked about some of the fundamentals I wanted to work on that day. Let me start with looking at your setup. I like the width of your stance, your posture, how much tilt you have. I like the fact that your elbows are tucked into your sides. That's very good. Of the 8 people that I worked with, you had probably the best fundamental of putting, and that looks really good. The only thing that I would want to think about is you do have a tendency to de-loft your putter. You get the face of that putter with a negative face angle, where there's no loft on it at impact. And a lot of research now is indicating that you will get the ball on line quicker if you have a few degrees of loft on the putter at impact. And anytime you hit a putt, it will skid for so many inches before it starts its forward roll. And if you can start that forward roll sooner with less skid, it will roll on line a little bit more true. And you have a tendency to hit down on the putt a little bit, which will cause it to skid a little bit more. So you might want to work on, see if you can't feel like you're hitting the ball a little bit more, maybe just slightly on the upstroke, just slightly, and see if that helps roll the ball a little bit better. I've drawn the letter Y on your 2 arms and the shaft, and one of the things that we check in a putting stroke is see if they can't keep their wrist somewhat stable during the stroke. And so this is the setup that you have. I'm now going to take your putter back, and then we'll see if you have maintained that letter Y. And you have not broken your wrist, you haven't become hingy and wristy with the putting stroke, so that's very good. As you come through and make contact, you have your eyes down. That looks good. And you keep your eyes down pretty well, even though that was one of the things I emphasized the most in the school, because most of the players turned their head almost immediately from impact. You were one of the players who did not. So you actually have very good fundamentals to start with. On the right now, as you hit the ball, we did work on it and talked about it a little bit more. So you, on the right, you did some strokes where you emphasized this, holding it even longer. But it really wasn't a flaw at all in your stroke to begin with. You had a pretty good sense of staying stable during the stroke and not to come out of your posture or to recoil the putter after impact. So even though you improved this fundamental a little even more, you already had it down pretty well. Now we're going to look at your chipping. On the left was the video I took before we talked about some of the chipping fundamentals, and on the right is afterwards. You already had a good foundation of fundamentals for chipping. You have your feet close together, your hands are forward, your weight is forward. You had mentioned that this was an area of the game that you had struggled with a little bit, and certainly if there are things sabotaging your performance with chipping, I don't see it in your setup. Your setup looks really good. One of the things we talked about was the swing itself. You had a tendency to what we call decelerate. That means as your club heads approach the golf ball to deliver a certain amount of force that would send the ball a certain distance, because you had a tendency to take too long of a backswing, the brain was not going to allow you to accelerate through impact the correct amount, because from that long backswing, if you were successful at accelerating, you would hit it too far. So you were decelerating, which is something you don't want to do, but you were doing it for a logical reason. Simply because you had no chance to hit it the distance you wanted if you did accelerate from that long backswing. So the thing that we focused on was the feeling of having a shorter backswing. And the number one cause of too long of a backswing is too fast of a backswing. And so once we established that we want to have a shorter backswing so that we can accelerate without hitting it too far, but also have a slower and smoother backswing. Going to, on the right, take that back to the end of the stroke, so it's about right there. And on the right, we had made some changes. And you went to right there. So on the right, you took a much shorter backswing and a much slower backswing and control the length of the backswing. Now your brain feels comfortable accelerating through the ball because it doesn't feel like if it did, it would hit it too far. And so you'll have a much better smooth accelerating stroke through impact every single time, which is what you really need to have in order to have good clean contact. You want to be able to accelerate through the ball. So that's one of the things that you did really well as you adjusted it, because you already had so many good fundamentals. You're keeping your head down, you're holding your finish. We just needed to make sure that the club itself was not slowing down as it approached the golf ball. We also talked about, practicing with different clubs and not just getting committed to just one lofted club for all shots, but to experiment a little bit with different clubs and find the ones that fit your abilities and to perform the best from different situations. So different lies around the green require different kinds of shots, and different kinds of shots require different clubs.